So, do y'all remember Eric Holder, former Attorney General from the Obama administration? The mastermind behind the wonderful Fast and Furious programs that sent weapons to the Mexican cartels? With resounding success, mind you. So, in light of this information, why would any person seriously listen to anything that he might suggest?
Do you think in 2028 reform of the Supreme Court should be a part of the platform for the Democratic Party?
Absolutely. I think the Supreme Court has to be reformed, potentially, expanded. We cannot simply allow this court to continue to do that which it has done. They don't focus on precedent. They focus on personnel. And by that, I mean, they think, all right, we've got 6 votes and we can now do things that are inconsistent with precedent, long-term precedents that have been put in place to the detriment of our democracy.
But this man thinks that the Supreme Court needs to be reformed. He explains that he feels the court is ignoring precedent. He further explains the truth of the Supreme Court that people don't like to talk about. He says that the justices on the court consider that they have 6 votes versus the other 3. He's referring to the 6 justices appointed by Republican presidents versus the 3 appointed by Democrats. Now, the court's supposed to be apolitical. And if his side, if the Democrat appointed justices had the majority, they would be putting out more than likely decisions that he could more agree with. And he would contend the court is apolitical in that case. But that's the thing. He wants to disagree about the court and say that it needs reform because it's not giving decisions that he likes. These recent decisions in favor of the current administration are not how Holder wants things to be. And he is suggesting that the Democrats should run campaigns, and part of their platform for these campaigns needs to be expanding the court. He even gave a few details. He even suggests adding 4 justices to the Supreme Court bench, bringing the total up to 13. So, let's look at this. If the Democrats win the legislature and then the presidency, and they want to add 4 justices, which the president would nominate and the Senate can approve. If this president is a Democrat, then all 4 of these justices would then make the majority of justices from the Democrats. That would be 7 from the Democrats, 6 from the Republicans, giving them the majority. But this is things that have been coming from the left for at least 5 years, ever since the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett. Every time the court makes a decision they do not like, they start talking about expanding the court. And the expansion plan would make it where their side would have the majority so they can get the decisions that they want. Holder went ahead and took it a step further and starts pushing another narrative that Democrats have been talking about for several years now. And that is term limits in the Supreme Court. He is saying that these justices don't need to stay on the court forever. He suggests that you limit them to a term of 18 years on the court. They don't need to stay on the bench for 30 or 40 years. Let's take a look at how ridiculous this is, because legislators decided several years ago with the 22nd Amendment to limit the terms of the president. that a president cannot be elected for any more than 2 terms. They cannot serve for any longer than a total of 10 years as president. Now they want to talk about limiting the terms of your Supreme Court justices. Notice what they're not talking about. They're not talking about term limits on the lawmakers. You got lawmakers in there for 30 plus years in DC. They're not talking about limiting those terms. Well, let's take a look at something that's relatively recent. Y'all remember Dianne Feinstein? Dianne Feinstein was a long-serving senator from California. She first joined the Senate in 1992. She left the Senate in September of 2023. She was in that seat for 31 years. Yes, she did leave the Senate in September of 2023, but that was circumstances completely and totally out of her own control that forced her to leave the Senate. She died 90 years old and still a sitting senator. She refused to give up her seat. She kept running for re-election and getting elected and would not give up the seat. In January 2023, at the outset of the 118th Congress, Feinstein was the most senior Democrat in the Senate. Now, starting in 1945, it had been customary that the most senior member from the majority party would be selected as the president pro tempore of the Senate. They did not give it to Feinstein, and they cited her advanced age and concerns for her cognitive ability. Anybody can do a quick search, take a look, and find out that you have 15 members, 15 elected lawmakers between both houses that have been in the DC legislature for at least 30 years. For some people, it's combined terms in the House and the Senate together. 10 of these members have been in DC for more than 40 years. You have one member, Senator Chuck Grassley. He's a Republican out of Iowa. He's been in DC for 50 years. He was a member of the House of Representatives from 1975 to 1981, and he has been in the Senate since 1981 up until now. But nobody wants to discuss term limiting the lawmakers. Oh, sure, you might have some who, during a campaign, they'll talk about the whole possibility of maybe trying to put term limits on the lawmakers. But once they get into office, what happened to it? And I will say this, I will definitely say this, it is not just the Democrats, it's Republicans as well. Nobody is serious about limits on lawmakers. I don't care what letter follows your name before the state you represent. This is absolutely ridiculous. To spend this long doing a job with minimal achievement is unfucking believable. These people, they want to put term limits on the Supreme Court justices. They put term limits on the President of the United States, but never, ever will they seriously take any steps for limiting the lawmakers. There's a way around it. We need to hold a convention of states. These amendments need to be introduced and ratified that would limit the terms for these lawmakers. We know that they're not going to do it. They're not going to introduce these bills onto the floor for debate or voting And even if they get approved and get them approved and then send them out to the states for ratification, they're never going to do this. Fortunately, there is a method that this can happen. We need to hold a convention of the states. Article 5 of the Constitution gives us the details of the provisions of how we can do this. But for the most part, it's the liberals that do not want this because they know that these amendments will not pass DC, but they will pass through a convention of the states and will likely be ratified if they get sent to the states. Liberals don't want to do this because even if they might be in favor of some of the ideas, there's a lot of other ideas that can come up during this convention that can be submitted as constitutional amendments that would definitely pass and ratify that they don't like, and they are so scared of this convention. I urge everybody out there, your state level representatives, the ones that you send to your state capitol building as lawmakers, you need to reach out to them. You need to talk to them and convince them that they need to approve a convention of the states within their body so we can make this convention happen. There's several things that DC is failing on. Several things that a majority, regardless of which side of the political spectrum you fall on, a majority of people agree that these are things that need to happen. But we know DC is not going to do it. Contact your state lawmakers, contact them, convince them they need to support a convention of states. So these different ideas and policies that we keep wavering back and forth on, depending on which party we put into control of any given part of the government. We need to make these things happen because we know that the people we elect are not going to. They know that we have the ability to do these things, and the Constitution makes it legal for us to do these things in these ways, and that scares them. Let's keep them scared. Let's make this happen. Everybody, reach out. Let them know. Make it happen. Hey there, everybody. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please, if you are enjoying the content I'm providing, if you are finding this information useful, go ahead, hit the like, hit the follow. Please hit me up in the comments. Let me know that I'm speaking some truth. Hey, let me know if you have a disagreement. I just want a dialogue here. So whatever you do, just let me know you're listening, and I thank you all for your time.